Hey everybody, here is where we are at with this thing. I am on attempt number 2. This is a second iCloud locked board. This board actually booted up and ran before I started robbing components off of it. Now, I've done a much better job at removing the CPU and cleaning up the pads, and also cleaning up the CPU without damaging any pads, and that is thanks to the advice from some really good people. So all of you, thank you. I'm not going to name names right now because I'm really wrapped up in life. I'm at a point now where I'm ready to reball the CPU. I thought it was really cool that I shared my very first experience with the A11 CPU and an iPhone X on YouTube, and I think it would be really cool if I share my very first experience with reballing a CPU. I've never done it before. I'm going to be using some stencils that I received here. Gosh, I received these stencils a couple of years ago, and I thought, yeah, I'm not going to be ready for that anytime soon. This is stencils for CPUs A8 through A12. So here's my, here's my next board, and then here's the chip that I got cleaned up, and we're ready to put balls on it. This is going to be really handy. These are like jigs to hold the CPU. We got A10, I don't know if you'll be able to read it or not, but they're actually engraved. They're marked. A10, here we've got A11 over here. And on the back side it says A12. All right, so let's see how this works. I would much rather just lay it, I had planned on just laying it over here on a hard tabletop on a paper towel. This is the way I've been doing these. But I do have what appears to be the proper equipment here, so I'm not sure. I probably should not just throw this on a paper towel, right? I believe it was Union Repair or Qian Li that sent me these stencils. Most likely Union Repair, since they're actually made by Geelon and not Qian Li. So let's see, we're going to choose the A11 slot here. Now, I don't know if it's got to be turned a certain way or not, but you see this thing is made for this CPU to just like slip right down in there. Man, that is freaking great. Okay, so let's pick out the proper stencil here. This came with a whole container full of these things. And let's see, here's A12, A11. Something tells me I'm really gonna like this. Oh, cool, so we've got A11 CPU, and then we've got A11 RAM. Okay, so we have these components on the bottom here. I believe, also from the advice of others, that those are only capacitors at the moment. Let's see if I can figure out what... Crap, that's the A12. How did I wind up with A12? Let's try the A11. There we go. There we go. All right, so let's see how all these capacitors line up. I like it that these stencils have cutouts for the capacitors to like sit in. We'll look at this under the microscope here in just a minute. So the stencil has cutouts for these capacitors to sit in. I've seen people who were saying that, I think there's a comment under my last video that said that the components on the bottom of this were capacitors. So somebody out there told me, I think it was one of my viewers, I think it was right under the video comments. These capacitors, if your stencil does not have slots for those capacitors to sit in, then people are removing them and putting them back. So that's what the stencil looks like going on there. That is like, this is like really cool. Let's look at it under the microscope. Oh yeah, right? Right? Oh, this is nice. I believe this was Union Repair that sent me these stencils. Sven, I really appreciate it. I gotta be honest, whenever these originally arrived and I unboxed them, it was just like a, kind of a far-fetched thing. I really did not realize how soon I would be doing CPU rework. So here we go. Let's see if we can get this lined up. Let's see if we can get some bright, shiny, new, non-hairy leaded symmetrical balls on it. Yeah, it lines up in there really nicely. All right, I'm just trying to make sure here that we've got it nice and flat on the CPU. I see we've got a little bit of play over here on this side. See the shadow moving? I don't like that. Can you see that shadow moving? Oh yeah, you can see that moving. I don't like that. I would really like for this thing to sit firm. I've got a really good feel for reballing many other ICs. Tons and tons of NANDs, tons of reballing, but I haven't done one. I have not done a CPU yet. So how are we going to do this? I don't expect to have to hold it down at all, right? Is there a reason why it's got play? Okay, there's no play if I hold it right here. So I'm going to be holding my tweezers right here. I'm going to go, oh, you can't see. I've got really big tweezers. I got part of them there and the other part of them there. All right. Let's get some solder on it. SOLLDDDERR. There we go. Now, I know, I've been watching people do this, and I know you are using a much, much drier paste. I know this paste is too wet. And that may actually be prohibitive here. So let's, I don't know, let's smear it all around here and see what we get. Get a fresh blade. And let's start smearing this around, right? Okay, this is starting to look pretty good. And now we are going to take a napkin, and I'm just going to wipe over this thing one time. Or a couple of times. I'm just going to make sure we get it cleaned up. I learned things from many YouTubers. I learned a lot of things from YouTube, so I also encourage you all to learn from YouTube. I learned from Rico Serva. I learned from Der Apfel Doctor, Ben Pei. He's a really, really good guy. The guy's extremely skilled. Really good teachers on YouTube. All right, we are ready. Now I'm going to remove my nozzle. Nozzle, hot air station. Get rid of it. We're not going to use that. What's up with my lighting? I'm going to remove the nozzle. We're going to set this thing. We're going to go with like a really low airflow. And I'm going to go with fairly high temp. We're trying to keep this stencil from warping. So right now I'm set at 340C and an airflow of 40. I'm going to back that airflow off. I'm going to go down to like 20, 25, right? No, let's go lower. Let's go 20. So I'm at 340C, airflow of 20. And now let's look at this thing under the microscope. Now you remember we had the stencil play. I'm going to try to make that not happen this time. I'm going to hold that stencil very gently, and we're going to slowly start to warm this up. All right, here we go. I figure if I use a fat enough nozzle and a low enough airflow, we're trying to do this without that stencil warping in the middle. So I'm essentially trying to heat up this whole block. Didn't work, did it? Interesting. All right. Well then, let's. I'm going to smear around on this a little more and get more solder in these holes. This is where I think I'm not going to be able to be successful without a dry paste. Okay. Thousands of hours under a microscope. Literally hundreds and hundreds of reballs. And you see what I'm going through on my first attempt at doing this. I know I should be using dry paste. I think that would help me out a lot right here. But with NAND, I use the wet paste, and the air, I sort of air dry it. It dries pretty quick. But in this case, I think we're dealing with such a fine pitch that the flux is carrying away balls under the stencil probably. Let's try that. And I think I'm going to put my tool in the middle, like out here. The tweezers are big and fat. I mean, they're not going to get down in the holes. Okay, so tool out here in the middle, like way out here. Or way in the middle, like whatever. Okay. I'm just trying to hold the damn thing down, okay? And slowly warm up the whole entire stencil. Like, we want to almost like warm it up from the bottom. I wonder if I'd have any luck sticking this on a preheater and just like raising the temp until it melts. Okay, I'm watching very closely here for things to start moving and changing. I see solder melting at my bottom left. You will not see that, I don't think. And I think we're about to see meltage going on. Get ready for it. The whole thing is coming up to temp, sort of all in one. If we heat up one spot, this stencil will warp. We've got to make sure the heat sort of like, the whole thing has to heat up. That's why I took my nozzle off. Oop, I see warpage at my bottom left. Which is pretty incredible considering I don't have a nozzle and I've got the airflow set so low. Here we go. My first CPU reball, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Fuck. Well, isn't that just shitty? No. Didn't get it, did we? Oh, how stressful. Ugh, jeez. Wow, it's hot. I guess I could take it out of there, clean it all up, and try to redo it again. Let's see if I can save it. Let's get some fresh solder down in here. This, the solder paste is too wet. I think that's what the problem is. Let me know in the comments below how badly you would like to jump through here and be like, don't do it like that, for the love of God. Alright, we've got the holes pretty well filled up again. And now I'm going to hit it with some hot air. Let's warm it back up. Being, gosh, I guess even more careful. I'm at an airflow of 20, man. I'm going to hold the nozzle back a little farther. Maybe I can spread the tweezers out a little bit. Let's go out a little farther. You know, not all the way out, but not all the way in. Give me a little more room to hold this. So I'm thinking dry paste. And also I'm thinking about heating it from the bottom, like on my preheater. This time I'm going to try to start our flow from the bottom. There we go. You know, that doesn't exactly look horrible. I mean, I've got one of these blobs that kind of squeezed through. This will prevent me from being able to take the stencil off. Yeah, I definitely don't want to be hockey sticking a customer's CPU because, well, this is pretty barbaric what I'm doing here. So don't do this. Alright, I think this might actually be freaking usable. So let me heat it up once more and turn these flat things into balls. And I believe I'm going to wind up doing this from the bottom up, like I just did. And I'm not having to do it as slow as I thought. I mean, I'm moving right in on this thing. Okay, here we go. Alright, everything has been melted and is happy. But I still don't think I can pull this out of the stencil because we've got bigger balls on top of it right here. Like, these are going to have that chip stuck in there, right? Alright. Moment of truth. Once more, I think it'll come out of here fine. And then we're going to look at it, alright? I don't think I'm going to hold the stencil down this time. I think I'm just going to do it. Here we go. Better hold that stencil down, boy. Ooh, baby. Here we go. It's marvelous. All right, everybody. You think this stencil's going to come up off of here? Let's try. Oh, just ignore all that excess solder. That was some other sloppy tech. Starting to look a little dry here, folks. I don't know if I should be doing this or not, but the solder is starting to look a little dry. It's not wanting to come out of the stencil. I'm going to heat it up just like this. Okay. I think I see why. We have another spot down here where these balls are actually too big. So I think the problems I'm having here are due to the wrong solder paste. Alright, let's see if I heat it up if it'll pop out of there now. Good God, man, I think it's still stuck. Tell you what, if this CPU will stand up to this torture, these things are tough. Okay, let's heat it up again. And this is without holding the stencil down at all, guys. That is just with this thing is sitting on the table. All right, let's see if the chip will come out of there now. Damn thing. Aha. Well, shit on me. That's actually not bad. So, right out of the stencil, this CPU looks like this. It's not bad. I'm doing it. I'm really doing it. It's actually good enough to where I don't even think we need to heat it once more. But I'm going to. Ooh, baby. Does anybody else get as excited about this as I do? All right, so this is actually starting to look pretty good. Let's float it once more, shall we? Those balls are all lined up so good that you can't even tell that it floated. So, all right, we have got the CPU reballed. Wow, I did it. I did it. I did it. Yeah, I did it. And I've got a donor board here. Now, the donor board, I have robbed the Tigris IC off of, so we're going to have to put Tigris on it. And then there's a small row of components that I actually intentionally took out of the way to put my thing under that we'll have to put back. But I'm going to try to get this board to boot. So, all right, let's set our CPU aside. Let me grab us a Tigris IC. You know, I'm going to grab one of the best ones in the shop here. Let's see. If I was a Tigris IC, I would probably be hiding out in this pile of junk on top of Jason's bench, right? Ooh, yeah, here's one. Let's see what this one looks like. Yep, that's a Tigris IC. And if I laid it up there on that top shelf, there's a good chance there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So let's move this over to reballing station B here. And put some new balls on it. This one will be significantly easier than the CPU I just reballed. I do that if I know that the chip is most likely bad, it goes in the trash under the bench. But if I know the chip was pulled, replaced, and the symptoms of the phone did not change, the chip I pulled was most likely good. And then it goes in the pile up on my top deck there, and that's the pile I go to whenever I'm out of ICs and I need one that's most likely good. That's my pile. I like my pile. It's not the cleanest in the world, but let's make sure I'm not skipping any rows this time. It'll work. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. It's probably not worth changing my nozzle around at the moment, so let's just go ahead and use the same config. I'm going to use this big old fat wide open hot air thing and see if I can get it to just float this chip. I mean, float all of its balls. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. I just reballed the CPU, mofo. You conform. You be easy. You have to be easy now. Everything, all things just became easy. There we go. So let's remove our stencil. Now I will admit that was a really swanky way to do some reballing. Like, only if I don't want to redo it, there's just not much risk, I will take that little hockey stick and chop the balls off and refloat it. I don't know, does everybody else do that? I'm sort of a loner. I don't know what everybody else does. I don't think I would want to do that to a live data device. Let's see, there's my little nozzle. Dude, where's my big nozzle at? Really? How could I not have that nozzle? Like, nozzle. Alright, station's all cooled down so we can turn it off. Put a nozzle on there. Now we have us a brand spanking new Tigris IC that we're going to put on this board. Looks like garbage. I promise it really, really did boot before I started mutilating it. So let's get some flux on here. This was one of two iCloud boards. This is either an iCloud board that would boot and let me unlock it. Still had all the guy's stuff on it, but it was signed into iCloud. All right, I'm turning my air up. Or this is an iCloud board that was stuck at activation. I don't remember. All right, this sucks. So I'm going to put this board into a holder. Dang it. Oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. I accidentally just blobbed a huge hunk of solder over here. I'm gonna just keep cleaning this up here. Can't wait to see if this works. If this works, I'm gonna celebrate. And then I'm gonna do another one. And then another one. And then I will start offering this as a service. That iron's not hot enough. How about this one's hot enough? Yep. There we go. There's probably a ground pad out there at the corner. That's good enough. I can line an IC up on there and it won't tear anything up. Let's see, is there anything else I should check before I drop a chip on this? We need to look at the other side of the board, for crying out loud. I did a bunch of CPU rework. I don't know what NAND looks like. All right, let's get the reballed IC on the board here. We're about to see if this thing is able to boot after I slap that CPU on it. All right, just go ahead and slap the CPU on there real quick. Oh crap, I lost it. I dropped it down in there. Okay. Now, I'm not sure where pin 1 is at on this, but we know that it's missing a ball. So I'm just lining it up according to our missing ball. Right? Is that where it was? Actually goes like that. That's how it goes. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's solder this sucker down on there. About time for lunch, guys. I skipped lunch today, and I shouldn't have skipped lunch. Okay. Right there. What just happened? The whole board moved in the holder. Oh. All right, let's put it on anyway. Here we go. Float this down on there. It's pretty rough. That was fairly sloppy. We're going to take it. All right, so we have replaced the Tigris IC. Now, along the CPU up here is this handful of components. This is where I started my removal. And I know that as I get more experience with this, I probably won't have to deal with that. I can probably just get in over the top of those components, but for the sake of not damaging the CPU, I just took them out of my way. All right, now we've got our CPU reballed. We've got our Tigris IC back on the board. The next step, thanks to the advice from some really, really good people, is to check and see what our current draw is without the CPU. We should get a really, really low current draw. Let's see, let's see here. What did Ahmed Valentine say? This guy is super sharp. Without the CPU, we should get, what is that, 2 milliamps or 1 milliamp? 1 or 2 milliamps of current, really? Cool, okay. Let's hook it up to the power supply. Yeah, that's the new one. Let's see what kind of current draw we get. I'm just gonna connect my power supply up here. Right now the power is off. That feels wonky. I'm gonna turn the supply on and we get 0 amperinis. That's a good sign. Now I'm gonna press the button to boot. Ugh, 400 milliamps. Something is shorted. So now I'm gonna get the 400 milliamps, huh? All right, so I think what we're gonna do here, this video is getting ridiculously long. I spent some time with this board and I did a little bit of troubleshooting and I figured out what this short was, but I'm really curious as to like what everybody's guesses are. So if you would wanna let me know in the comments below what you think the short is, in the next video that I post on my CPU reballing experience. It is going to be me finishing this. We are going to repair the short. We're going to put the CPU back on it, and we're going to see if my very first iPhone X reball has been successful. This board worked before I messed with it. So stay tuned, everybody. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. You know, I'm not feeling like I did too bad for my very first attempt. Now we do have some minor imperfections here. Let me see. Let me find something to beat myself up over. How about right here? Yeah, there we go. There's one. I can beat myself up over this. This ball is smaller than that ball. These balls are not the same size. These balls are dirty.